Another day is here, and you're ready for it. What to wear? Check. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Check. Planning for what's next and how to save for it? That's where Bank of America can help. For your financial to-dos, Bank of America has experts ready to help get you closer to your goals. Get started at one of our local financial centers or 24/7 in our mobile banking app. Find a location near you at bankofamerica.com/talktous. What would you like the power to do? Mobile banking requires downloading the app and is only available for select devices. Message and data rates may apply. Bank of America N.A., member FDIC.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Now's the time to save 30% on wedding jewelry, only on BlueNile.com. Make sure your wedding ring is the one, with your pick of diamond and lab-grown diamond bands, all hand-finished and graded for excellence. Or surprise her with something blue she'll love for life, like a stunning pair of sapphire earrings. Blue Nile's jewelry experts are available 24/7 to help, from fit questions to style advice. Right now, get up to 30% off at BlueNile.com. BlueNile.com.
Hello and welcome to AI Scouted on Anfield Index Pro. This is day 2 of our watch-along with the European Championships. I'm Dave Hendrick, of course, joined by Mr. Karl Matchett. How are you, sir?
I am well, thank you. I am feeling marginally refreshed after last night's fairly late finish and ready to go again for the first full day.
Yes, today is the first full day of action. We have 3 games today, but we did have a game last night. And, Karl, I think it's fair to say it wasn't the most competitive game in the world.
No, I mean, I'd be honest, I've probably played in more competitive games than this. It was very disappointing from Scotland overall. I know they'll be disappointed at the scoreline, but I think their overall approach right from the start, to be honest, was pretty shoddy. I guess the tactics that they employed, it wasn't really a surprise. So that's fine if that's their game plan. But it was really slow. It was really reactive. They were way too slow to get out to Germany's players in and around sort of between, let's say, the penalty box and sort of the 25-yard line, that kind of thing. They were nowhere near them at all. And obviously conceding so early on. Although a mental blow, I suppose, in terms of you've prepared and that's the moment you've been waiting for and so on and so forth. They probably wouldn't really have been either expecting to win or at the very least they would have been prepared that they would be behind. So I don't really get the sort of collapse that they had mentally as a team. I thought that was the worst and weirdest thing about Scotland last night.
Yeah, I mean, they line up in what is basically a 3-6-1 type of shape. They're clearly there to try and spoil and, frustrate the Germans and then hope to hit them on the counter, or if they can get a set piece, look to work from there. But everything goes out the window on 10 minutes. There's a Tony Kroos crossfield ball, finds Kimmich. He finds Florian Wirtz on the edge of the box. It's a decent strike, Karl, but the goalkeeper got a lot on it, and you really felt like Angus Gunn should have kept that one out. But then 9 minutes later, it's 2-0. The ball finds Havertz in the penalty area. He lays it back, and there's no stopping Musiala's shot. But for me, that's where things needed to change for Scotland. You're 20 minutes in, you're 2-0 down. You can no longer afford to try and keep playing the same way, and yet we saw no movement from Steve Clarke. I thought it was a really strange thing.
Yeah, I mean, had they sort of settled, he was obviously trying to calm them down and get them to focus and remember the game plan and so on and so forth. There wasn't much change to it, though. And I agree, like I said, they were way too slow off the ball. Like, if you're not going to be willing to, press high upfield, then at the very least, you've got to defend that area outside your box and make it really, really difficult for the opposition to get crosses in, make through passes, turn on the ball, get shots away, basically. And they would not. They were so passive and just allowed them to, really. Like the Musiala goal, okay, fine. Nobody is stopping that shot. It was a brilliant hit. But about 4 touches of the ball before that, you should be stopping every single one of them. Like, was it Gundogan played the first through ball, Kroos to Gundogan, he turned, then he fed Kai Havertz, didn't he, sort of left channel. Like, every single one of those points, you've got to be doing more. Like, I know they were making a big deal out of the fact that I think it was McGregor maybe jumped in to try and win the ball off Gundogan when he turned in. And like, yeah, okay, fine, that's not ideal and you've lost yourself and you're out of position. But still, the rest of the team then have to react to that. And nobody went to him, nobody closed him down, nobody closed off the angles, nobody ran with the players. They were just running back in a line in defensive shape as such, but not a shape which can stop any harm. And then it just carried on from there. Like, the Musiala goal was a bit of a highlight one, let's say, because of how quickly it was and how hard he hit it, the shot. But he had so much time on the edge of the box to take a touch, shift it out of his feet, and then absolutely welly it. And that carried on all game long. Now, that goal should have been the one there where they say, right, look, we've got to really start here. We've got to be a lot quicker. We've got to be a lot more aggressive in your face. Not aggressive in the way that's obviously Ryan Porteous was a few minutes later, but in terms of closing people down, in terms of working much, much harder off the ball. I get that Germany are a far better team. Nobody was expecting anything different. But that doesn't mean you can't run fast. That doesn't mean you can't be alert to the movement. It doesn't mean that you can't step out of your position quickly when it looks like someone's got an opportunity to shoot. They never did that all night. They were still allowing them to do it when Emre Can scored right at the end of the game.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, there's a massive talent disparity here. But the old saying is that hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And it's not to say the Germans don't work hard or weren't going to work hard last night, but we've seen plenty of times in major international tournaments where a decent team that absolutely runs themselves into the ground can stymie and upset a better team. And we've seen this Scotland team, in prior international tournaments, do a lot better against teams as good or maybe even slightly better than the Germans. So it was disappointing. And then obviously, look, everything kind of falls apart then just before half-time. Gundogan, ball drops to him in the middle of the penalty box. And this is the definition of being chopped down, I suppose. Ryan Porteous flings himself in, two-footed, it's high, it's dangerous. Gundogan goes down. The referee somehow missed it, Clement Turpin, on the first watch, but then was sent to the screen and overturned the decision, gave the penalty and dismissed Ryan Porteous. So Scotland down to 10 men. Kai Havertz steps up, and it's the John Aldridge penalty. It's the run-up, the hesitation, and it's a nicely taken penalty, but Angus Gunn has decided to go early and go the wrong way. So 3-0 at half-time. Into the second half, Scotland take off their only forward player in Che Adams and bring on another defender. So Grant Hanley comes on at centre-back because Perish thought you might try and do something else. And we see Scotland play a 5-4-0 formation for the remainder of the game. No attacking intent, really. It's 4-0, and then that goal's ruled out, but then it is 4-0. Nicholas Fulkrug, another thunder bastard that gives Angus Gunn absolutely no chance. That's on 68 minutes. Scotland get one back on 87. It is an absolute comedy of errors. It's a bad free kick by Andy Robertson that Jonathan Tad takes a big old swing at and misses completely. A Scottish player tries to, I think it's McKenna, tries to head it back across goal. And Antonio Rudiger, if he was trying to do that into the opposition net, he would probably do it once out of every 100 times. Gets a flick to it and arrows it into his own top corner. That's 87 minutes. And you think, okay, well, 4-1, given the circumstances, given you've had a player sent off, it's very disappointing, but sure, you know, you live to fight another day. But then Emre Can picks the ball up on 93 minutes. Again, this just highlights what you've been talking about. No pressure on the ball. And he just bends the ball round the defender and into the far corner because Emre Can is not flopping in Saudi Arabia and left at home for the Euros. Emre Can is captaining a team to the Champions League final, and now at the Euros and going to play an important role for the Germans, despite being the late call-up. He gets his goal, and 5-1. And 5-1 always feels like a proper smashing. Like I don't know what it is, but 4-1, even 4-0, doesn't feel as bad as when you concede 5.
Who are you taking pelters at there?
The fellow that flopped in Saudi Arabia and then flopped in the Netherlands and was left home for the tournament.
Very odd.
The player Emre Can has always been better than, but Gammons didn't want to recognise it.
I see. Okay. Didn't pick up on that one, I'll be honest. Look, it could have been 7, and it wouldn't have been a discrepancy in terms of the way the game panned out, let's be honest. Scotland were woeful, and Germany were very, very good. I think Musiala was electric. His footwork last night was on another level at times. I suppose, as they said after the game, we'll see how they are when they come up against a better side. But in terms of getting the party started, that was as good as you could hope for, I think.
Yeah, I do think that against better teams, they're probably going to need to do something slightly different in attack, because Musiala is incredible and Wirtz is incredible. And we all know Gundogan's very good and Kai Havertz is a good player. And Kroos is an incredible player and Robert Andrich is decent, but there isn't really a whole lot of foot speed in that group, like real burning pace. So, I mean, we saw Leroy Sané come off the bench. You'd imagine he'll play more in other games. I do think Fulkrug made a decent case for himself to play more often. He had a goal and had one disallowed. And I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the tournament he's starting as the 9. Havertz did get a goal and an assist, but I think what he does is quite easily replaceable in that position. I was very impressed by the Germans, I have to say. I was very, very impressed by them. And like you said, it could have been 7, it could have been 8. It felt like the Germans in the second half were almost taking pity on the Scots and not really trying to drive home the massive advantage they had, both in terms of talent and now in terms of numbers. So, yeah, I mean, a really, really strong performance from Germany, really, really poor performance from Scotland. And on the basis of that, you'd have to feel like Scotland likely finish bottom of this group. They're going to have to up the game, even though their next 2 opponents in Switzerland and Hungary, well, yeah, Switzerland next and then Hungary, they're not nearly as good as the Germans, but if Scotland play like they did last night, they're going to lose to both.
The delicious ice-cold taste of Dr. Pepper has a lasting effect on people. Lindsay from Sacramento said,
Pro tip, 40 degrees is the perfect temperature for an ice-cold Dr. Pepper.
why is 40 degrees the perfect temperature for Dr. Pepper? We brought in Sue from Duluth, Minnesota to tell us.
Oh, yeah, I know a thing or two about cold. Oh, that right there is the perfect kind of ice cold for Dr. Pepper. I'd share that with my friend Nancy. She likes Dr. Pepper, too, you know. My coldest...
All right, that'll be all, Sue. Having a perfect temperature for your Dr. Pepper? It's a Pepper thing. Inspired by real fan posts.
Yeah, they need a rethink in terms of approach, as well as probably one or two of the personnel. Since we now have 14 minutes left, we better speak about their next opponents.
Yeah, just quickly, Liverpool perspective here. Andy Robertson's performance last night, graded out of 10 for me.
Rated out of 10?
Yeah.
3? 4?
Yeah. In and around the same as most of his teammates. Not good. Not good. Right. Later today then, 3 p.m. kickoff in Cologne. Hungary versus Switzerland. Dominic Szoboszlai, his first appearance in this competition. He obviously missed the last Euros through injury, having carried the team to it all by his lonesome. Now he's got a bit more support around him. I think this is going to be a good game, Karl. I think this is a really well-balanced game. We all know what the Swiss have done at international tournaments. They always find a way to grind themselves into the last 16, sometimes even the last 8. What are you expecting from this one?
I think it'd be a really, really good game. This is Szoboszlai's first tournament, isn't it, basically, because he, like you say, he missed the last one. So I'm looking forward to see how he gets on there. We know, obviously, he didn't have a great end to the season, but this is a really comfortable environment for him. It's one where he's basically the go-to guy, isn't it? So I think he probably will have a decent individual tournament. I'm hopeful. I actually quite like this Swiss side, to be honest. I think the more I look at them, the more I watch them, I think that they've got something to cause a bit of an upset. I wouldn't be surprised if they get quarters again and knock someone who has let's say, a bigger reputation out in the last 16. Much depends on the forward line, though, because we've been here before with Switzerland. They're a team kind of like Denmark in a way, where they've had like a good a base and a foundation and a couple of defensive players who are playing at a good level in the midfield, but then the further forward you get, the harder it is to find that goal scorer. And like we've spoken, maybe Højlund becomes that now for Denmark. He's got a good strike rate at the beginning of his career. Switzerland is still looking for who's going to be that. But what they do have now is a collection of players who could be it, who are now all approaching that sort of mid-20s age group. So like Zeki Mdan is 23, Vargas is 25, Noah Okafor is 24. You're hoping basically that one of them comes through and becomes, or between them, including Dan and Doyd maybe, becomes the group which can create and score goals between them, rather than just one single focal point. So if they can get that right, and obviously Breel and Bolo are still there, and he's only 27, even though he's been playing for about 150 years.
Forever. For absolutely ever. We were teenagers when he was making his debut.
Yeah. It's absolutely ludicrous. He's probably the whole world has got that wrong. He is just omnipotent, perhaps. I really like the squad. And do you know what? They have a lot of players who have played at a really high level this year, and I think that could be important for them. We've spoken about whether or not the best goalkeeper is actually going to be in goal for them, because Kobel is really good, but Zommer's had the season of his life sort of thing. And actually, Adam Vogel might actually be their second choice keeper. So Kobel might be the best one, but be third choice. But they've had a load of them have had a good year. Like Akanji, obviously, with Man City, on and off individual form maybe, but club-wise, huge. Like really, really good, obviously, again. Zakaria with Monaco, great season. Xhaka, great season at Leverkusen. On and on it goes. A couple of them at Bologna. I think this could be a fantastic match.
Yeah, I mean, like, you're looking at, a 26-man squad here, where there's only like 5 of them who aren't playing in the top 5 leagues. So they are playing at a high level, and as you said, a lot of them playing important roles for clubs that had really good seasons, or just important clubs in general. I do like the squad, and I like you, I think they're just waiting on one or two players to really find form in front of goal. Obviously, at the last Euros, they sprung the biggest upset of all when they knocked out France, who came into the tournament as the favourites to win it. They were very unfortunate then to lose to Spain on penalties in the quarterfinals. But this is a Swiss team that's very, very happy to take you into deep waters and just try and grind out a result. I really like Zeki Mdoni, I have to say. I really like his game. I know he didn't have a great season for Burnley, but I think if you put him in a decent mid-table team, I think he could really do well. I'm looking forward to seeing what he does next. There's just something about... He reminds me, even though the player is younger than me, he reminds me a little bit of an Enciso, that sort of second striker type, really good movement, really clever player, drops wide, drops deep, can make runs beyond the striker, and is capable of scoring some really impressive goals. So he's a player I do like. And obviously you highlighted a couple of others there, the likes of Noah Okafor and Dan and Doy, who have a lot of potential. There's also, of course, the presence of Ruben Vargas in the squad, who's more of a winger, but he's got some goals to his game. So they do have options. They do have weapons. I think this is a really interesting one. Who are you picking to win?
I'm going to go for Switzerland just to edge it, but maybe 2-1. I could also see it being like a 3-3, to be perfectly honest. I think that maybe both of them really go for it in this game, because this might be the game which decides if they are going for third or are going for second.
Yeah, because I think after last night, both of them will fancy the chance of beating the Scots. So they'd be looking at this and thinking, okay, well, 6 points, we're definitely through. If we only get 3, then it becomes dicey. And both of them will probably think 4 may be enough, but maybe not, because we don't know what will happen in other groups. Following on from that then, Group B kicks into action that game is at 2 p.m. UK time. This one is at 5 p.m. UK time. It is Spain versus Croatia, the first game in Group B. I think this is the toughest of the groups. I think it's the toughest to pick. How do you see Spain versus Croatia going?
I expect it to be fairly dominant for Spain in terms of possession, but I think it'll be a really big test for how they arrange their team, because Croatia, while not necessarily a great goal-scoring side, are probably still one of the better ones in transition, just because of the aggression and the technical quality that they have in that midfield zone. I'm not totally sure how Croatia are going to set up, to be fair, in terms of personnel, the front three at least. I think I'm still backing Spain for a win, but I do think it'll be a struggle for them at first, unless they get a bit of an early goal and force Croatia out of shape.
Yeah, because the things we know about this Croatian team is that they're incredibly well organised, they're incredibly disciplined, they're very hard to break down, and as you said, when they pick the ball up and you're scrambling to get back, they can be absolutely lethal, because they've got really good ball carriers, strong ball carriers like Kovacic. They've got a couple of elite level passers, particularly Luka Modric, obviously. They've got pace in the team. I think this is a really interesting chess match. I really do. And like you, I feel like if Croatia go ahead, I could actually see them beating Spain by a couple of goals because of that ability in transition. If Spain get the first goal, then it becomes really interesting, because Croatia have to become a bit more adventurous. But look, the Croats are capable of breaking teams down. They're capable of keeping the ball for long periods themselves. It's not just the Spanish that can do that. But yeah, to me, this one feels like maybe like a 2-1 Spain win.
The only thing I would say is that of all the teams, let's say that I think there are 4 teams who have got a good chance of winning, let's say, Germany, France, England, and Portugal. But then from the next group, I would say that Spain maybe have the biggest disparity between the players we're really sure about how good they are and the players who we're not that sure about and how good they are. I think there's a big wide gap between how good Spain are in the midfield pivot and a couple of their forwards and the defensive unit, let's say, because if you are looking at either the third or fourth choice centre-back coming in and playing a couple of games, if you are looking at Jesus Navas still having to play some part, I don't know, I'm just not there with that part of the team, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I think that's really fair. I mean, there's a couple of exceptional footballers in this squad, and there's a couple of players that have, I mean, sky-high potential doesn't even begin to cover it. Like, there's is there a better prospect in world football than Lamine Yamal? I don't think there is. Like, that kid just looks so special. But he's 16 years of age. And while he has played a lot for Barcelona and a lot for Spain already, he's got 7 caps. There is always the possibility that he just freezes up on the big international stage, you know? And like, they're heavily reliant on Rodri, heavily reliant on Pedri. We don't yet know who the third midfielder is going to be for certain, I don't think. The defence, there's definitely question marks there. There's question marks about whether they can score enough goals if Morata's leading the line, which he will be as captain, because he's so streaky. So these are the issues for them. There's a lot of good players, but then, like you say, there's a lot of players where you're looking back at the great Spanish team of 08 to 12 and thinking, Christ, you wouldn't have even gotten a look in back then. A lot of them you'd look at and say you'd have been a great squad player for them to have, or maybe you would have snuck into one of the weaker positions in the team. But some of them you'd just think that Del Bosque and Aragones before him wouldn't have even considered these. So, like, there is quite a bit of disparity there. But I do think they'll win this game. The other game then is an 8 p.m. kickoff. It is Italy versus Albania. I'm really excited for this because I was really impressed by the Albanians during the qualifiers. There's a couple of players in the squad that I really, really like. I've talked before about how much of a fan I am of Aslani from Inter Milan. So I'm looking forward to seeing him. Marash Kumbula is another one that I've talked about quite a bit. Do very much like him. Looking forward to seeing him. And then, even though he's had a couple of rough years and he hasn't quite recovered from the ACL, I do just find Armando Broja to be an interesting player because he's very, very bustly. And he's the type of pain in the arse forward that ball-playing centre-backs that we'll likely see from the Italians can oftentimes not like dealing with. Now, there's some suggestion that the Italians might play Calafiori next to Bastoni as the two centre-backs. So Guy Drinkel is currently in Scotland, fuming about the idea of this. But what do you think this game is going to play out like?
I'm really interested to see it, to be honest, because even if there's, you're talking about the possibility of a defensive surprise, let's say, for Italy, I think in attack as well, like almost all the way through the qualifiers and sort of the 2023 into 2024 games, Giacomo Raspadori was the centre forward. He was like leading the line with Chiesa or whoever on the other sides of him, and not leading the line in the way like a Füllkrug would do, obviously, but there and joining play and attacking from deep and all the rest of it and doing really, really well. And then over the last sort of 4 or 5 games, Retegui and Scamacca have had a bit of a chance, and Retegui obviously has a really good strike rate early on in his Italy career. He's got 4 in 8 caps. So I'm kind of hopeful Raspadori gets the first run and gets the first chance, but they may well, against this kind of defence, want a real focal point, someone who's going to occupy 2 people, basically. So I think that there's a lot of interest in this Italy team. Obviously, shouldn't be forgotten that they're actually the defending champions and in this game defending their title, despite not having made a World Cup at all in between. So loads and loads of interest around every part of this game, to be honest. And I'm not at all sure how this Italy team are going to react to the situation, to be honest.
No, me neither. There's a lot of question marks, and even the most ardent Italian fans do seem a little bit concerned about what the team is going to be in defence, in attack. Some of them have question marks over some of the midfield decisions that will be made. So there's a lot to go into this. How much do you think, in the group stage in particular, does the manager make a difference? Because if we look at the managers in this tournament, I think it'd be very hard to go beyond number 2 without naming Luciano Spalletti. I think him and Nagelsmann, in whatever order you want to put them, are quite clearly the 2 best managers at this competition. And Albania are managed by Silvino, who's done well with them, but his managerial record before that with Lyon and Corinthians was pretty poor. How much do you think the manager makes a difference?
Well, I've sort of said before, I think at international level, a lot of it, I think, is in terms of like the man management and like getting the group together, especially when it comes to tournament, much more than, shall we say, tactical acumen. But obviously there's got to be a certain element of respect there, which is earned along the way to get the group to do what you want. You've got someone like Southgate, for example, has earned that over a longer period of time because he's improved England, even if he's not seen as a managerial genius or anything like that. He's made the group and made them do what they want, and England have got better. And it's visible that England have got better, so he's earned it that way. So I don't think it's like absolutely paramount that they have to be tactical masters or anything like that, especially in the groups. It's much more important that you get a team playing well, cohesion in the group, that you obviously have a good plan, which is worked on in training, but a lot of the time that's down to the coach and staff as well. So I don't think it's absolutely imperative. I think teams can get to the Euros by being tremendous groups. You look at teams like, I don't know, over the last 2-3 editions of the Euros, Wales probably did it that way. Iceland probably did it that way. You could argue that Georgia have had to build the same sort of way. They've got 1 or 2 good players, but overall you'd say the group is probably the much more important thing. So I would say that is the bigger influence in getting there. And maybe if you're trying to just get through the group stage and not just be the best, then again, that's going to go a long way.
Yeah, manager might come into it a bit more in the knockout games when it's, the competition does get a little bit harder and quality might play more of an issue. Because I do think you can probably grind your way through the groups by just outworking your opponents. And especially if you do have one or two game breakers, like you mentioned with Georgia, they've got a really strong group of grafters, and then they've got two outfielders that are capable of winning them any game. Right, so I didn't get did you give a prediction for the Spain-Croatia game?
I think I possibly said 2-1 to Spain. If I didn't, I'll say that now.
Okay, so we're aligned on that. And then give me a prediction for Italy versus Albania.
Like I said, I've not really got loads of idea what to expect, so I'm going to gamble a bit and guess that Italy do click in terms of their movement in the final third. I'll go 3-1.
Okay, cool. I will go 2-0. I'll go 2-0, but I do expect a good game, and I do think the Albanians will give them a tough outing. I don't think it's going to be easy for any of the teams in this group against the Albanians. So it's going to be a really exciting day, and we will be back tomorrow to discuss Sunday's games. So we'll see you then. Take care. Bye-bye.
Sports Social Podcast Network.